Go. Clap.
You can clap. Ellie, welcome back to the podcast.
It's very good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's as much yours as it is mine. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has.
Last time we did something, it was probably very sunny.
And now it's 2nd of September and the weather is,
Bloody miserable.
as you can imagine, for England.
Yeah, absolute misery.
We soldier on. We've got
But
our coffees to keep
anyway,
us warm.
Like, let's not get too depressed on this. So we're going to talk about audiences and Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And how to look outside of the platform for ideas and inspiration and new ideas for targeting, basically.
Yep.
Which I think at the moment is very apt, because since iOS 14 rolled out earlier this year, lookalike audiences in some accounts have been pretty tricky.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't been performing as well as they have been. So actually there's a renewed focus and importance on getting your interest audiences right.
Yeah, 100%.
So very topical topic.
Very topical topic, yep.
You also recently published a blog post on the topic.
I did. Go check it out if you haven't already. Like, subscribe, sign up to the newsletter, everything.
Click every button that is presented to you without asking any questions whatsoever.
Yep.
Tell me what your thoughts are on this.
So the main point around the blog post that I wanted to push, and just in general talking about like renewed interest for interest audiences, was sort of looking at outside tools that you could use, such as Google Analytics.
Yep.
It was looking at affinity categories, specifically within GA, which sort of point out interests that probably you wouldn't have seen or even thought about using for your Facebook audiences.
Yep.
Basically, anything from your audience behaviours to other sort of interests they have, hobbies, what entertainment they're into, what like books they read.
Yep.
You can get that granular with GA.
Yep.
So my point behind it was basically use it.
Yeah, it is a really cool feature in there. So the affinity audiences, they come from the Google Display Network.
Yep.
But Google Analytics will report on affinity audiences and tell you how your traffic breaks down amongst those audiences, right? So you can see, based on traffic or revenue, what affinity audience groups, i.e. interests, hobbies, all that sort of stuff, people are falling into. And then you can take ideas for more targeting.
Yeah, 100%.
Have you got any examples?
I do have an example. So we worked with a really cool makeup brand, and we used the affinity categories to pick out interests and create personas that we wouldn't have even thought of. So, for example, it can get quite easy to sort of be narrow-minded and blinded almost by what you think you should be targeting, who you think you should be targeting, and what interests. Whereas the affinity categories really help to sort of decipher other personas, like brand new ones that are like just out the box. So, for example, we created 3 or 4 different audiences based on different personas for people who would be interested in this makeup brand. So instead of doing, I don't know, competitor makeup brands and other things, we thought about like what hobbies these like targeting audience want. So we created a like media and publishing, so books that these people like were interested in, TV shows these people were interested in, things like that. And it just helps so much to break down and delve into categories we didn't even know we should be looking at.
Yeah, and I think actually particularly when you've been running an account for a while, like, it's very easy to stick with what you know and stick with what's worked in the past. And although like stepping from the outside in is very different when you're in the bubble, it is really difficult sometimes to come up with new ideas and keep those audiences fresh.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's a really good move, I think.
Yeah, and I almost think like seeing those new ideas that the affinity categories bring, it then like snowballs other ideas. So you think, okay, well, if I'm seeing that, then I know that, I don't know, if I'm seeing that they like this type of music? Why don't I then target these music festivals? Why don't I then target these radio stations and things like that? And it just snowballs so many more ideas.
Yeah.
And we had such good results from it. So
That's
I
great.
highly recommend.
It's brilliant. And like you say, one thing leads to another, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
oh, they're into travel. All right, what destinations? There you go. So yeah, brilliant. Are there any other places you think you can look at for ideas? Like really out of the box stuff, like looking at TV shows, and then like you say, you go from one TV show, like if everyone in your audience seems to like Love Island, do they also like,
Yeah.
you're going to have to help me out with some other Love
so
Island like shows
so
here.
if you're interested in Love Island, not you have to be, but you'll most likely be interested in a lot of other shows on ITV2
Yeah.
or reality TV, other reality TV
Yep.
programs.
Yep.
Again, you just snowball so many more ideas off one tiny thing that you see.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah, definitely.
I'm all for it. Love affinity categories.
But I think part of that is just the mindset of stepping away from the platform a little bit and thinking elsewhere.
Yeah.
And going back to the basics of, I don't know, part of it is just having your eyes and ears open for other ideas.
Yeah.
Like Google Analytics is such a great point because I think, again, you say it out loud and it sounds ridiculous, but a lot of people who work in Facebook ads will never look at Google Analytics, and there's so much in there
Yeah.
just for sparking ideas. What are they buying?
Yeah.
Okay, well if they're buying that product the most, then do we push that? Do we?
Yeah.
So many different
Yeah.
ideas you can get in there.
I also think just like don't be afraid, because you might see some things in GA and think, oh, I'm not sure that like our target client is going to be interested in that. Like I know it says it here, but like historically it shows that they're not. Just try it, because it might be the golden nugget that you've been looking for, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
And if it doesn't work, then at least you can say you've tried it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also like looking on other social platforms as well. So, what are the, obviously on Facebook you can look at related and similar pages on Facebook to your client and get a sense of the crossover and all of that type of stuff. But do the same thing on Pinterest, do the same thing on like TikTok. What's coming up in the feed around that subject or around that business? And
you can see that in GA as well. You can see like people's like behavioural patterns and what other platforms they're interested in.
you can see what they're coming from.
Yeah. So again, that could be another
idea.
That could be another interest audience.
Yeah, definitely.
Like a social networking.
Yeah.
People that are interested or use Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest, and then you can narrow it down to like further fit your type of targeting, basically.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Back to your point on personas, again, I think there's a bit of a weird conflict with, not conflict, I'll try and explain what I mean. So obviously every business should have at least a pretty good idea of who their target customer is. They're male or female, they're aged between this age bracket, they like these things, they live in this area, that, at a basic level.
Yeah.
That doesn't always translate into great. You can't just carbon copy that into a Facebook ad set and do well.
Yeah.
But just even going back to those points can be a useful exercise to, again, spark different ideas.
Yeah.
And talking to other departments as well. So, I don't know, like if you're responsible for running Facebook ads, is there a department responsible for influencer marketing? If so, what influencers are running?
Yeah.
Are they big enough to target?
Yeah.
What are the interests surrounding that influencer?
Yeah. It's almost like getting to know your target audience really bloody well.
Yeah.
Like really well, because off the back of that,
Which sounds so obvious.
but you just need to
Yeah.
scratch below the surface.
Yeah.
But even in doing that and getting to know, like getting to the bottom of who you want to target,
Yeah.
you can then create your like copy, and what sort of copy have these people responded to historically?
Yeah.
Like what sort of creative, is there anything new you could try after getting to know them a bit more,
Yep.
after knowing that they respond well to certain things?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And what's your view on copy versus new targeting ideas? So let's say you've had these 4 audiences that have done really well historically. You're now trying, because you've gone and looked for new ideas. You've got a bunch of new ideas for audience targeting. Do you revise the copy to kind of relate to those people more
Yeah.
versus because they might not be they might need a different
Yeah.
thing
So,
to get
so
them
you're
going.
saying each audience / persona may need a different sort of
Message.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
someone who's into Love Island might need a little bit of a different approach to someone who's into travel
Yeah. 100%.
or like, you know.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of it. You want to speak to your audience on a personal level.
Yeah.
Like you want to relate to them. You want to seem relatable. You want to seem like chatty, informative, and then drive conversions off of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And I think, so if we were to list out, like, I guess one of the points here really is if you're stuck for new ideas, what's the go-to list of things to get the creative juices going for new audience targeting ideas, right? So GA affinity audiences.
GA affinity audiences. Test 2 or 3 new audiences.
Yep.
I would say run them for, we usually say at least 2 weeks, at least.
Yeah.
Take a look at your results. Based on your results, because I would start, sorry, I'm really backtracking here, because I would start all the same copy in the same,
Okay.
within the same personas.
Because then you're testing the audiences rather than the
Yeah.
copy. Yeah.
And then once that, I don't know, 2-3 weeks is up, then you can delve a bit deeper and then look at changing your copy and creative and whatnot.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you've got finding new ideas, Google Analytics, just thinking outside the box a little bit, looking at different interests, going back to your personas and thinking about kind of your customer just at a very basic level and
Yeah.
seeing if that sparks new ideas. I think just getting together like we do this as a team, don't we? When we feel like an account might be getting a little bit stuck, we'll get together and just get everyone to bring a bunch of ideas in.
Yeah.
And it might just be ideas off the cuff, which is absolutely fine as well, isn't it? But that is always a very, very useful exercise.
Yeah, because
outside
again,
eyes.
like just snowballs. One person could say one thing and then boom,
Yeah,
you get a million ideas.
yeah, definitely. Broader topic, how is Facebook ads at the moment? Because iOS 14 was like, oh yeah, it's all okay. It's been a bit mad, hasn't it? And now,
Yeah. I think a mix with seasonality as well as iOS 14, like July, August time. I mean, across the board hasn't been amazing, but also sort of looking at last year, comparing things to last year, which
Yeah.
you should not do.
yeah,
Because like last year's data was just not data that you
Yeah.
have, like you just can't compare it.
yeah,
But as it's sort of coming out of season and we are sort of heading towards the Q4 era.
it's only a month away.
I know, prepare. I think things will start looking up, especially if people start using interest audiences.
You should.
Yeah, I think it will start looking up. To be honest, I've been quite lucky with clients that I have, and I haven't seen any major drastic changes
That's amazing.
from iOS 14.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's been okay.
Yeah, that's good. I think every account's reacted a bit differently, and some are fine, some are struggling a bit more than others.
Yeah,
More so probably the lower spenders.
Yeah.
The lower spenders. But it's a really good shout actually, and there's so many knock-on effects, isn't there? And one of those is lookalike audiences, particularly for smaller accounts that are putting a bit less volume through, have been tricky. So getting all of these ideas on the table now in terms of planning your interest audiences ahead of, if you're pushing ahead of Black Friday, so important.
yeah, yeah.
So important.
Get that big pool of people ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't rely on what has worked in the past, because it obviously keep them running, and if they're working, great, but it might be different this year,
Yeah.
mightn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Ellie, that was short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I hope that was helpful for everyone.
Yeah, I think definitely is. It's so topical, and just finding ways to come up with new ideas is always really good. So go and check out Google Analytics or Affinity Audiences in Google Analytics,
Yeah.
and you will get some new ideas.
Yes, and let us know if you do.
Yeah, please do. And please subscribe, and see you next time.
Bye.
Cheers.